gave me the ability to be honest, open, and vulnerable with people in my life, and how that impacted the relationships that I had with people and how it impacted the way that I actually moved through life. It was that I wasn't afraid to just be an honest reflection of myself.
Welcome to the Fearless Happiness Podcast, where we showcase phenomenal individuals who have overcome serious traumas, life obstacles, and challenges to find their own path to fearless happiness. Listen as Max Naist invites guests from all around the world to share their experiences and spread strength, hope, and faith. This is the Fearless Happiness Podcast, and this is Max Naist.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Max again from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. And today I have a really amazing and special guest. I know you're thinking I always say that, but it's true. All my guests are special and amazing. I am so honored to have him here. But CJ, what I like you to do is tell the audience like a little bit about yourself, who you are actually, and what you do, and then we're going to dive in.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Max. Appreciate you having me on. So like you said, my name is CJ LEDY. I am a mindset coach. I'm an author, also a real estate entrepreneur, own some RV parks where we do a health and wellness spin at them. Handful of different things, but just somebody who has overcome a handful of things in life that have given me perspective and lens, and I've appreciated kind of getting more perspective through the podcast that you put together. So thanks for having me on.
Well, honor's all mine. And like now, you've piqued our interest. We want to hear all about you, of course, but let's go back, and you said it right. So what are some of those challenges that you faced growing up and in your life that has made you who you are today?
Yeah. So I grew up as somebody with a lot of social anxiety, a lot of just fears around moving around in space. And when I was 18 years old, I was hypnotized. I went to one of those stage hypnosis guys where they make people dance like a chicken across the stage or something. And I was just sitting in the audience. And at that time, especially with my social anxiety, no way was I getting up there on stage, but I'll watch. And afterwards, he goes, okay, anybody who wants to stick around, I'm going to hypnotize people in the crowd. And so I thought, okay, why not? And the next thing you know, I walked down into this deep trance. I'd never done anything with meditation or visualization or anything like that. And next thing I know, I'm pretty much passed out with my head in my lap and in this just very zen state that I'd never experienced. I was like, what's going on here? And he goes, you can focus on one of three things: stop smoking, lose weight, or stop the fear of what others think of you. And, I was skinny. I wasn't interested in cigarettes. So I was like, well, it'd be pretty cool if I didn't care so much about other people thought about me. And I come out of this hypnosis, and very long story short, my life was changed immeasurably. I honestly, instantly, the guy right afterwards, he goes, how long do you guys think that lasted? And in an auditorium of probably 400 people, I was the first person to scream at the top of my lungs, 5 minutes. And I was like, whoa, like, why did I just do that? And I had no fear that came up like I normally would, all this anxiety. What are people thinking of me? Da, 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 da. And it just changed the way that I interacted with everybody that I came across. It changed the way that I participated in sports. I was more free and comfortable to do it more naturally. I became better at them. I became better at my presentations in school at the time. I've started getting into deep, honest, open, vulnerable conversations with the people that I was meeting and that I knew. And it was just changing the dynamic of how I was interfacing with life. And it was really just this stripping away of the fear of what people thought of me. And, it wasn't an instant silver bullet cure all. It kind of just showed me the possibilities. It showed me the potential of the mind. And from there, it was really my job to kind of figure out how to build a mindset that could help me experience life and the quality of life in a powerful way. So that was really one of the biggest moments that kind of changed my trajectory.
Right. Because at 18, right, I remember like, I couldn't help but care what people thought about me, right? Like sometimes it ruled my every waking moment. And I called it shyness, right? But it was social anxiety. Like I could be around certain people that I knew and grew up with, right? But you put me in a different crowd or like up in the front of the room to do a project. And I'm like, no way. I'm going to give you F. Go ahead. I'll take the F, right? Because I'm not going up there. Like,
right.
And I was really shy growing up. So, right, because I'm sure some people in the audience are going to go, some believe in hypnosis, and I've seen it work for some people, but I've also seen the ones that have a really strong mind and it doesn't work. Right.
Yep.
But I think at that moment in time, you had this moment in your brain where you said, I'm open to changing the way things are going. Right. And
Totally.
so, because mindset, I believe, is everything. Right. At least in a lot of areas. Right. Like, but physical health, sometimes I think when you lead with having a healthy body, the mind will follow. Right. But sometimes you need the healthy mind to go, hey, body, you need to get, we need to get you off your 56-year-old butt, Max, and you need to start doing some stuff before you look like those other grandpas out there, right? But
right.
So growing up with social anxiety, experiencing it myself, even like when I first got sober, right? Like I didn't want to go to the meetings because I always thought everybody's talking about me, or right. There's too many, even though it was like a small meeting, right? I had to work my way up to the bigger ones, but how, like when you realize like something changed in that moment, like you screaming out like me, like, or 5 minutes, right? Yeah. You had to have been like, where the hell did that come from? Like, right. Someone with social anxiety being in a big, well, with 400 people, that's a lot of people. I know some people where that is so bad that they would not even go into that auditorium. They'd be like, nope, see you later.
Totally. Yeah, thankfully I wasn't at that level, but
right. But still having it can be crippling at times. So when you realize, when you shouted out, like, what was that moment like for you to go, wow, something different happened? Like, that's not the me I know. Something good is happening here. How did that feel for you? What was that? What did that look like as you progressed in your high school and college days and all that stuff?
Yeah, it was profound. And I appreciate you sharing the fact that you've experienced some of that as well growing up. And I think that something seemingly simple like social anxiety, you might take that at face value and go, oh, well, you're a little bit more shy. You're a little less likely to stand up in front of the crowd and speak some blah, 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 blah. But the truth of the matter is that's one small issue that manifests itself in a lot of different ways in our lives. And it really comes down to how you show up for every little thing that you do. And this was the profound thing that I experienced through the moment where everything sort of shifted for me. It wasn't just that I was willing to scream out in front of a crowd of 400 people 5 minutes. Like that doesn't do that much for you. The interesting part was how it gave me the ability to be honest, open, and vulnerable with people in my life, and how that impacted the relationships that I had with people and how it impacted the way that I actually moved through life. It was that I wasn't afraid to just be an honest reflection of myself. I was okay with just being me, with thinking the thought that was in my head and speaking it freely with confidence and with certainty, and the way that that was impacting everything that I was doing. So, social anxiety is one example, but there's lots of little things that in our lives. It could be addiction. It could be all these things that you say, well, it's only affecting me in this little area. And it's just this. But really, when you strip it down and you actually become very at peace with yourself in different forms and fashions, you find yourself showing up in a much more authentic way in many different ways that you might not have initially pictured. So when I left that auditorium, one of the first things I noticed, I was walking around and I was looking at people deeply in the eyes, and I was like wondering if they just experienced what I did. I was like, did you just go through this crazy trance dream state where now you're feeling this wildly free state? Like, is that what's going on for everybody here? And I would look at most people and they would look at me for a second and they'd look away. And same thing, look at somebody else, they'd look away. And I started to notice fear all around me, because as I was staring at people, awkward eye contact, fair enough, they're going to jolt their eyes away. But I was realizing typically I would have been the first person to look away. If somebody looks at me that I don't know, oh, I'll look away. Oh, look away, look away. But for the first time, I was looking back at them for long enough that their fear would hit them first. And I was like, whoa. And I started seeing fear all around me. And I was like, wait a second, like the whole world is in this state that I was before, is feeling that anxiety, is feeling that social awareness of like, oh, how am I supposed to behave? Am I looking too long? Am I doing this right, that right? And I didn't feel that. And it was just like, whoa. So yeah, it really, there was a lot of little things that happened, but it just transformed the way that I was able to honestly and vulnerably show up for the moments in my life that didn't even seem to matter. But all of a sudden you'd be in a conversation with somebody and it would take a whole different dynamic, take a whole different direction that led to something much more relevant, that led to understanding who that person was at a deeper level, to understanding who I was at a deeper level. And all of a sudden that information becomes useful to move with. So there was a lot of layers to it, and it continues to sort of unfold how it's affecting my life. And that was 15 years ago. I'm 33, and I'm continuing to experience pieces of how that's shifted me.
Right. I love it, because if we all as human beings could learn to show up in life more vulnerable and open, and right, I think a lot of the stuff we see going on in the world wouldn't be happening. Right. There'd be a lot of more kindness and compassion for each other, and a lot less judgment. Right. Because I know, and I know, like, when someone is looking at me, you can almost feel like, right, like we're seeing each other across the screen here, and I could see like the smile on his face, right, the genuineness. But you get some people where, like you said, they look away, or certain cultures, right, where looking them in the eye is a sign of disrespect, and we don't want to do that. Sure. Right. But we could still show up in a more vulnerable and better manner to, right, work with people. Right. But it starts with us. It sounds like this has been an evolving and growing event for you, like ever since that happened. Right. But thank God, right? Because something opens your eyes and your mind to saying there's something better than me just being afraid to be around people. And right. Because you wouldn't be in the situation. You wouldn't be writing a book. Because I know if I didn't learn to become more vulnerable, like with, say, my sponsor, right, and learn to get honest and with someone who I trusted, there was no way I was going to write a book, because the whole time I'd be looking at blank pages going, I'm not going to tell people this. No way. They're going to think I'm an idiot, or, you know what I mean? Like that judgment we put on ourselves. And, I'm going to say it, right, because I can't. Like, you're still, like, to me, you're young, right? And you still, and it's cool to see this, right, because you still have your whole life. Like, if I would have learned that like you back when I was 18, I think the whole trajectory of my life would be different. But at the same time, right, I learned it on time when I was supposed to. And I'm here with you today, right? So let's get into, before we get into your book and what that's about, right? So you graduate high school, you have this, let's say, a new awakening about yourself, right? Did you go to college, or did you become an entrepreneur right away? Or did you figure that as you were going to school?
Yeah, so it actually happened to me my freshman year of college. I went to college in Denver. I grew up in Minnesota, Minneapolis area. I went to college in Denver, University of Denver, and it did cause me to shift my my degree. So I was originally going through the business school. I knew I kind of wanted to do real estate long term, so I was doing marketing and real estate focused. But it really opened up a different interest for me in the way that people behave. And so I thought maybe it's psychology that I'm interested in, but that was a little too sciencey for me. And I ultimately ended up on sociology, studying people and how they, behave, especially in groups. And I found a ton of interest in that space. So that's what I ended up graduating in. I knew I wanted to do something with real estate. And, the coaching side sort of just developed out of nature. Like I said, I became very interested in interacting with people and asking them, like, I felt much more comfortable to be myself, and I became fascinated with understanding how other people thought. And I was like, I just had this huge shift in the way that I'm thinking. So, like, how do you think? And is there anything that's holding you back in your thought process from what you're trying to do or how you're trying to feel? And I just became obsessed with it. And I would have hours long conversations with random strangers that I'd meet on the street, or some of my best friends or family. And through those conversations, sometimes they'd come back to me and be like, man, that conversation helped me so much. Like, can we talk about this? Can we talk about that? And I didn't really realize what I was doing, but what I was doing was coaching. And so as I graduated college and started to get into the business world and whatnot, I realized that was more than, just something that I enjoyed as a side hobby of just talking to people and whatnot. It was like, this was something that was a useful skill that people really appreciated, that would be valued in the workplace. And it gave me a way to sort of open the doors to say, hey, this is something that I do, versus before some people would be like, well, do you really want to chat? Like, I don't want to take your time and blah, 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 blah. Like, this makes it, There's a reason. I'm a coach, is what I love to do. So that really triggered that interest for me and kind of sent me down that direction. So I finished out school. There was a part of me that wanted to get more into the professional world more quickly, especially as I had some of these epiphanies and wake ups. But honestly, there was also a big side of me that said, hey, take each stage of your life and enjoy it as much as you possibly can. Of course, we all want to get to the end of the rainbow and find the pot of gold as quickly as we can, or whatever your big dream or whatever your big achievement that you think would unlock this next level of your life may be. But ultimately, our life is just one long experience. It's one long song and dance. And it's not about reaching the end of the song or the dance. It's about the actual process of doing it. And so the more you can actually just settle in and be like, this is the stage I'm in right now. So for me in college, that was, I'm living in Denver. I have opportunities to go ski. I have opportunities to like experience life in a whole different lens. Like, I'm going to take this and I'm going to wait until it's time for me to go and do professional things because I have this beautiful little opportunity. Right. And that's the same energy that I switched into. Okay, now that I'm in the work world, I want to enjoy this. I want to like take it seriously and really fine tune how I'm going about it. So I think it's also just enjoying each stage for whichever stage that you're in.
I love it. Right. Because I love what you said, because a lot of the books I read from very successful people, obviously, right, don't always talk about, they're like, if anything, they're like you. They say, don't worry about the result. Trust the process. Right. Yep. And I thank God for my mentors and my sponsor when I got sober, right? Because they said, you're going to see a bunch of dudes, you're going to see dudes walking into a meeting that came with, a Porsche or whatever. And right. Don't worry about that. Right. Trust the process. And thank God I did, because I've gained a lot of education over that. Right. And where I'm not focused so much on, okay, the car, the job or whatever, but enjoying people in the moment. Right. And enjoying my recovery. Because for years, when you're in addiction, you lose all sense of reality. Right. Because that's what you're trying to do, because you don't want to be in the world, because you're not liking the feelings you're going through or whatever. Correct.
Yeah.
Right. So, like David Goggins says in his book, right. And learn to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Andy Frisella, for instance, he's always about, don't worry about the end, like do the work. Just, if you fail, you learn your lesson and you keep going. But that's kind of like how life is, if you think about it, right? I would be sitting about, right? If I was getting sober 21 years ago and I'm thinking about like, I'm going to do a podcast with CJ LEDY, I got to make sure I'm on point by the time I get there, right? This moment could be long gone, right? Or never happened. Totally. But I'm with you on that, because what I've learned as I've gotten older and hopefully wiser is to enjoy the moments, the little things as things are unfolding in front of me, right? Like I told you before we start, my grandkids, or watching my, kids get sober, a couple of them who went through the same thing I did, and watching them turn their lives around, right? And not trying to control that, but be, like you said, open and vulnerable enough to, if they have questions, to have that honest talk with them, but not give away what the end result is going to be. You got to do the work and you're going to love it, but just keep going.
Yep.
Right. Cause that, if you think about that, like I'm thinking about you and being with having social anxiety when you were younger, right? Because like in sales, right, whether it's real estate or RV parks, like you're talking about, right, you have to deal with people and you have to, right, learn how to sell.
Totally.
Right. And how has that process over time gotten better for you when you realize like the mindset stuff and right, just enjoying the process, right? Because I don't think you could tell my audience enough, because I try to tell them, and I don't know how many podcasts now, 185, that it's just trust the process, right? Like you're worthy of success, but you got to learn to just be in the moment, right? That's why I love mindfulness. It just teaches me to be in the moment and handle what's right there in front of me. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. The not to fast forward, but it does kind of play into my book. So my book is called Tune Your Mind, Finding Follow Through and Fulfillment in the Dawn of Distraction and Disruption. And so right there, you got follow through and you got fulfillment, which in my opinion, how I kind of lay it out in the book is the follow through is more around your achievements, right? That's the goals that you have set, the path that you're trying to walk down, the external world that you're trying to create for yourself. And then the fulfillment piece is the internal. That's the process, that's the journey, that's the experiential elements, that's the emotions that you feel, that's the satisfaction that you feel about your life and the process that you have within it. And so my book kind of breaks down how to look at a goal or a dream that you have in life, or even just a specific avenue like your health or relationships or your career, and how to really drive those two key elements of how do I build fulfillment? So how do I take care of the inside, and how do I build the follow through and the achievement as well, the outside? How do I organize my external environment in a way that I like it as well? So, coming back to the fulfillment of really enjoying the process and trusting the process, there's a handful of tools that I provide throughout the book, but one of them that I think is really important and is oftentimes overlooked, and it also seems very simple, but it's profound. A lot of people don't do this, is to ask yourself, how do you actually want to feel during the process, during the journey on a day-to-day basis? A lot of us, we run from what we don't want to feel. Well, I don't want to feel anxiety. I don't want to feel, rushed. I don't want to feel this, that, or the other thing. But how much time do we really spend saying, I want to feel this sense of peace and excitement in my day and in my morning? And then, you start to build the energy of the actual experience that you want to have. And the more you remind yourself of that and be intentional to cultivate that inside yourself, now you start to feel it. Right. So a lot of times, and I experience this in my coaching all the time. I have people who are dealing with pain, dealing with emotions, dealing with problems in their life, and they have 1,000-word dictionary to describe the problem. And I say, well, what do you want it to be like? How do you want to feel? And they'll have like maybe 2 or 3 sentences around it. I don't really know. I don't know how I want. I guess I want to feel better. It's like this generic, not thought through. And the mind, whatever we spend our time and our energy thinking through, is what we experience in our bodies and in our emotions. So if you've got 1,000 words about the life that you don't want to live, and you have that clearly, you're just giving that to your mind, your body, and your experience. So you need a 2,000 or a 5,000 word explanation about what you actually want to be experiencing, both emotionally and within your success outside world as well, because that will actually start to program that inside your body, inside your emotions, and help you to see those things in your environment as well.
I love it. That's kind of like in the addiction field, right? When you're doing your assessment to see how you're going to treat them, right? You get their background and how long they've been using all that. And there always comes this part, right, in the biopsychosocial, and you ask the question, what are your strengths, right? First thing they go is, I don't got any. Right.
Right.
And then you ask them, okay, what are your weaknesses? And they come up, everything, right? The drug itself, this, that, right? And
Totally.
to help them, to try, sometimes in the beginning, I found it hard because I went through the same thing. Like, so what's your strengths? And I'm like, what do you mean? I don't got none. Well, you're a survivor, Max. You lasted on the streets for 9 years, right? Or you didn't get hurt in jail when all this, you have to really reprogram your brain to think about, even in the bad times, like what you went through, right? Which I try to help the clients I serve, like, just so they can get an idea that, look, the more you put in stuff that you think is good, the more your mind's going to start to change and balance out, right? Because when we're negative, we don't want to feel that stuff. We're ashamed, we feel guilt, whatever. Yep. And, and for me, I will speak for myself, but I bet you a lot of addicts and recovering people will, guilt and shame are the biggest 2 feelings or emotions that keep us out there, right? Because we use the drugs, and for a moment we don't feel it. We're like, cool, right? Like, go have a beer at the bar. Yeah, I'm great, right? And then you wake up in the morning, and boy, it's come back like a tidal wave. And like you saying, I think it's so important for the audience, and thank you for sharing that, right? Is to that's why I haven't started gratitude journal. You know what I mean? Like, just simple 3 things in the morning. And because we know, if you study neuroscience, they say if you wake up in the morning with 3 positive things, and then the last thing you do at night is put 3 new positive things in your brain, it's going to help build new neural pathways, right?
Totally.
So, you know, and coaching, right? When we coach a client, you know, in the beginning, it's tough, right? Because they're saying, I don't know what I want to do. Like you said, if I ask a client, how do you feel? Most of them right now are going to go like shit, right? Like, don't ask me crazy questions because you know where I'm going to, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, we're going to try to change the mindset, right? Like it's got to start now because I'm a big believer like you. The more I put out into the universe that is negative, the universe is going to give it right back to me because that's
Totally.
what it's like. That's what the universe thinks you want because that's what you're putting out there.
Right.
That's why I try to tell my children, right? I try to teach my grandchildren, you know, like trying to be a coach to them, like, hey, man, we're going to make sure you're. Sometimes
Yeah.
my granddaughter looks at me like, what are you talking about? Opa, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm good at planting the seed, right?
Right.
But what I'm getting at is guys like you and I, right, who have gone through our challenges and how do you work with a client that comes to you and like say the first few sessions, right? And they're like, CJ, I don't know if this is going to work or not, right? Because they're negative, right? You're having, how do you help them clear those blocks so that they go, oh, I like what he said. I'm going to try that then. You know what I mean? Because as you know, as a coach, the first few times is just, that's the hardest part, I think, is to break through, right? Someone may have that social anxiety. Maybe they have some type of trauma where they have the walls up and they just not going to let anybody in, right? How do you help break down those walls so that they can see that they're worthy of this process that we're talking about and that they're, if they do the work, they're going to have a life beyond their wildest dreams. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah, it varies from client to client. I think everybody's requires a little bit of a different approach. It's about understanding who someone is and where they are. There's a lot of talk about that. You got to meet somebody where they are if you want to help them walk somewhere new, right?
I love it.
So, it really does depend a lot. And you just try to come in and be understanding. Everybody has different circumstances in their life based on where they were born and, what their body is that they use to, experience life with. And all of these different circumstances, things they've learned and experienced throughout their life shape who a person is and how they interface with the world. So it's really about just being understanding of who someone is and where they are is step one for me, is just try to understand their worldview and not in a judgmental way, not even in a way of we need to change this, we need to change that. It's like, let's just understand why you think the way that you think and also understand why you think that that is the most useful way for you to live your life. Because that's the other part that I think we don't realize often is that we assume that, oh, just because someone has a fear or something that, well, the person knows, oh, I don't want to have that fear. But the reality is the reason that your mind is holding on to the fear is because it believes that the fear is keeping you safe or the fear is helping you to do something in a way that's productive for your life or at least for your emotions to keep you safe emotionally. So it's about really just understanding the way that somebody views the world, the way that they think, the way that they believe. And then for me, it's really about breaking down the fundamentals of the mindset that's going to help them build out of wherever they are. So for me, and in my book, I break down 5 key elements of mindset that influence somebody's ability to overcome addiction or chase down a dream or whatever it is that's important to them. And like I said, it's tune your mind. So I relate it to a guitar and I relate the 5 elements of your mindset like the strings on a guitar. So we go through and we understand which elements are in tune and out of tune. So the 5 pieces, one is passion. And so it's understanding the purpose. What's the meaning? What's your why behind overcoming addiction, for instance? The next piece is clarity. So that's about understanding where you want to go. That's your long-term vision. Where would you like to be in, say, 10 years? What's the most beautiful, optimistic outlook? If you could get anywhere, where would you want to be without any fear? All those types of pieces. And then break down a little bit of a strategy to get there. And then the third piece is momentum. So how have your actions shown as of recent that you're taking the steps necessary to get there? And what's the energy? What's the action that's required to actually get there? How much is it going to take from you? And get really clear on that. And the fourth piece is a sense of subconscious ease, which is really about understanding the limiting beliefs that you have and the empowering beliefs that you have. So kind of like the conversation we were just having. A lot of people are just filled with all these limiting beliefs, filled with all this negativity, and maybe their empowering belief side is a little bit smaller. So that's about breaking down some of those limiting beliefs and building up the empowering side so that you have a sense of ease in the way that you produce activity. And then finally, number 5 is a sense of necessity. So why is this incredibly necessary for your life to do? So that's really about understanding what are the consequences of falling short and what are the benefits of you reaching success in this area. So I like to go through all 5 of those pieces and really just create some clarity around each one, just have a conversation about each piece. And what I find is, as long as you're kind of understanding, meet somebody where they are, and you start to think through those pieces, that can really help somebody to see with more clarity, to activate the right pieces of the mind. You start to see them kind of transition away from some of those limiting factors and start to feel the importance of doing it, feel the necessity, feel the drive, and actually see a clear path and know the steps that are required to get there. So that's kind of my little blueprint that I go through. And if you read the book or listen to the audiobook, you can get it right there too. But that's the basic structure.
Right. And I love that, right? Because there's so much that I love what you said about me. That's the same in the counseling world or therapy or the addiction field, right? Like I have to understand, I need to meet them where they're at, right? I'm 21 years sober, right? If I go say you're coming into treatment for the first time, I say, CJ, you got to be like me, bro. I'm 21 years sober. You're going to go, can I get a new counselor, please?
Yeah.
This guy is right. Yeah. But it's very important, right? You got to understand. I like what you've been saying is like understanding what they're going through in their life and in their minds. And that's the only way you get to meet them where they're at. Because if you don't ask certain questions, right? I'm sure you have like questions you'd love to ask to get a kind of idea where they're at in their head, and right. Meeting them where they're at is, I think, but that goes, I think, for all of us, right? Like we're all in different areas of our life, right? And I think if we, like you said, learn to be vulnerable and have a different outlook, a more positive outlook, like we can all have conversations without getting crazy on each other, right? Like I've seen some, right? Like you can talk about politics without getting angry, right? Or because you believe one way and I believe the other, right? I'm just having a meeting where I just want to understand how you believe that, or you know what I mean?
Right.
And that's why I'm so glad you're here and you're talking about mindset, because I think it's important for all of us as human beings, right? Because I know for me and I know for you, that's why you're here. You're always striving to be a better human being, right? So how am I going to leave a legacy in this world for when I'm gone, right? What are people going to remember about me? Mm-hmm. Is it the good things that I left behind by, how I treated people, or you know what I mean? Or is it going to be because Max, didn't care about anybody. He did his own thing. And really, who is he? I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's important. So let's get into your book. Like we kind of have an idea of why you wrote the book, right? But let's talk about your book. Because I'm sure the audience has a ton of questions for you, right? And we'll do the best we can. But like, what was the impetus for you to write the book? Like, what was one of those moments? Did you have someone like me that said, you need to write a book? Or was it like you looked in the mirror and you said, I need to write a book?
Yeah. It sort of was a naturally occurring process that I didn't set out even to write a book. To backtrack a few steps to give a little bit of context, I probably about 3 years after my hypnosis experience, I lost 4 of my close friends in a series of really tragic, unexpected accidents. And so that was in my early 20s and was really forced to face the harsh realities of life and death, at an early stage of life. And through that, I'd already had all of these ideas and understandings and new perspectives on the mind and life in general. And so I tried to apply all of that to the loss of my close friends. And it really helped me to recognize that, especially something as difficult as grieving through the loss of a loved one, the way that you think about what you're doing, the way that you think about what's happening in your circumstance, the way that you think about their loss substantially affects how it will affect you moving forward. What are you going to take with you from their life? How are you going to inspire yourself based on the fact that they don't get to live? I mean, for me, it's like I think about my buddies and I go, I got to live 4 times as hard, 4 times as fearlessly and as happily, because they're not here to do it and I'm going to do it for them. And I do my best to carry that vision, to carry that inspiration, and to work with the people who are struggling and all these different pieces. But one of the things for me was to share my truth. And one of my best friends, Dave, who passed away in a fire, we had a conversation probably about 2 weeks before he passed away, because one of our other friends had already passed away. And we were talking about life and death and the reality that one of us might lose our life early. And what would the other person do if that happened to the other? And we both said, like, you got to live your life full speed ahead, super happy, super excited, super true and honest to yourself. And don't let fear stop you from anything that you know is important to do. So the book is actually dedicated to my buddy Dave. And he had told me, just kind of like you said, it says, in memory of David Dubrow, who told me I would write this book years before I considered it. I'd gone through a handful of difficult things, and Dave told me one day, he's like, worst case scenario, you'll just go retreat and you'll end up 6 months later, you'll have written this badass book and da 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 da. And I was like, I'm never writing a book. But as I started writing my book, I remembered that he said that to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, full circle. But it really inspired me to just, if I felt like there was something I wanted to do or try, to do it, to not hold back, to not let fear stand in the way. And I thank my friends who I've lost and the experiences that I have accumulated through that, because it's given me drive that I didn't have before to try things and to bare my soul a little bit more open and honestly and vulnerably. So that was a huge piece of it. But the book sort of came out of me creating these coaching programs. So kind of like I told you, I'd run through people through your why, what are you trying to do, the momentum and action, the ease and the necessity. And I had this structure that I was using in my coaching. And I decided one day that I wanted to write it all down. I was like, I should turn this into a workbook, so that, I can do it with people as we're doing the coaching. I can give it to people. It's more producible. It's more, mass scalable. And so I started doing that. I started writing down all these different concepts and the questions that led to the answers that we're looking for, and da da da. Before I knew it, I had about 50 pages, single spaced. And I was like, this is almost a book right here. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to spend a little bit of time and I'm going to add some stories and some context, some chapter titles, all that kind of stuff, and I'll have a book. And so I was actually in Peru. I did 2 months in Peru doing a volunteering program. And I ended up spending the last month where I just rented a little Airbnb out in the middle of Cusco, Peru. It was beautiful, overlooking the whole mountains and everything. And I just sat there for about 3 weeks, on and off with the volunteering, but I just sat up there for hours and hours and just busted the whole thing out. Came back from Peru, said, friends and family, I wrote my book, here it is, and it's done. And then they came back to me, they said, what about this? What about that? And I looked at it again. I was like, shoot, all right, something else. And 10 revisions. I wrote 10 revisions for this book where I thought it was done. I'd give it out to some friends and family. I'd look at it again and kick it back up. So ultimately, it's been a long process, but a beautiful one. It's been fun and enjoyable the whole time. Honestly, there wasn't a part of it that I didn't enjoy, except for the final pieces of publishing were a little bit cumbersome, but
like the final editing and all that stuff, and
exactly.
Trying not to be OCD about, I get it, right? But you're like, that's not going to work. I need this to happen here.
It's never truly done, right? At a certain point, you just have to stamp it and say, it's good enough and it's ready for the world, because I can write it for another 10 years, but then nobody gets to read it. And what's the value in that?
Exactly. Mine took me 10 years to get finally done, right? Because
I get that.
Everything distracted me, right? Her, the job, this or that, right?
Totally.
And then when, and that's, I love it, right? I love talking to fellow authors, right? And the processes they went through. But, for me, it was like finding out that a friend who helped me with my outline never told me until I released the book, or actually his wife did. And, he was about to lose it, or his mom did. He was about to lose everything. Like, get it. He lived in New Hampshire. He lives in New Hampshire still, but he was in his own apartment, right? Like everything was about to get turned off. He had nothing. And to find out that he took that time to spend with me, maybe, and it took my brother, passing for me to realize like, oh man, okay, I got to finish this. Right.
Yeah.
And it just became one of those, what do you call it? It was healing for me to finally write like what I went through in my addiction and everything that from before from the bad to the change to the good now. Right. And here I get to have you on my show, on my podcast and listen to your journey. And I know everybody in the audience, I mean, you provided so much value so far, but I'm going to ask you some of the questions I love asking, right? Which are very few besides the ones we've already talked about, but fearless, like you mentioned, right? Living fearless. So knowing I wrote, or part of my title is fearless. What does fearless mean to you, CJ? And how does that show up in your life on a daily basis now, today?
Yeah. So I think it ties back to a lot of the pieces that we touched on. I think fearlessness it's not a state of sheer confidence, kind of like I had right after the hypnosis, where I just didn't feel any fear. That's a great version of it. But I think that the way it shows up in our life much more is a recognition of things that scare us a little bit. And I think that oftentimes that feeling of scaredness is usually an indication that it's something important that we're supposed to do. Sort of like your soul's recognition of like, hey, that thing over there, it's a little scary, right? Yeah. I mean, you're supposed to go do it. There's a reward on the other side of overcoming this. Right. So it's meeting something with a state of courage. And even with the hypnosis experience, I did have this massive increase in confidence, but it was more a realization that like I could interface with the world in a more courageous way. I could show up and really put myself out there vulnerably, even though I would still feel that like, oh, I don't usually say this, I don't usually go here, but I'm going to. And just feeling that like that little sense of fear is there, but I can see from a larger perspective of my mind and my life that I'm just stuck in this thought process of like fear freezes me into, it's like, no, I'm just going to move right over that and act with courage. So it's really manifested in a way of feeling a sense of peace and just showing up courageously in the face of challenge. I think that's what fearlessness really means to me, being authentic, being honest and true, and feeling fear and moving through it with courage.
Oh, boom. You heard that, everybody. Love it. All right. That leads me to my next question, happiness. And as you see, I put a Y in it. Knowing I put that Y in happiness, what does happiness mean to you today, CJ? And how does that show up in your life?
Yeah, happiness. Happiness to me. So the most important thing in my life is the number one goal that I have set for myself is to deeply enjoy my life. Very simple, right? At the end of my life, I want to look back and I want to be like, did I deeply enjoy the journey, the process, the experience of my life? If I can say yes to that, boom, success, and that's a marker of all the time, this year, this week, this month am I deeply enjoying it, regardless of what's going on, regardless of the challenges that I'm facing, am I enjoying the process of life? And so to me, that's really kind of what happiness is can I actually on an internal level tap into the experiences that are happening in a way that I appreciate them, that I have gratitude, like we talked about, where I slow down and really say, yeah, you know what, this moment is a beautiful one. And I'm going to maximize the moment as well. Sometimes we're passively experiencing the things that happen in our lives, whether it's dinner with a loved one or something in your career. Do you sit there and you're like, wow, this is beautiful? Or do you just say, how do I extract the most beauty out of this moment? How do I bring myself forward in a way that I will look back at this dinner and be like, heck yeah, like I'm happy on how I showed up for that moment. So that's really what deep enjoyment, deep happiness looks like to me. It's showing up for all the little things in a way that I recognize that, like, you lost your brother, I lost my friends, recognition of life is short, life comes and goes. Some people didn't get the opportunity to have this moment. And so we're blessed that we do. So appreciating it truly in each moment, that's happiness to me.
I love it. I love it. Right. Like you said, like losing friends, family, loved ones. Right. And especially at a young age, right? Four of your closest friends. And right. Me, it was 90 years ago. Three of my closest family members, my sister, brother, my mother.
Mm.
I mean, and you're right. That's why I tell the clients I work with, right? Whether it's coaching or in a facility, right, where I just tell them, I know you don't feel good, but just slow down and enjoy that. Right now, you're safe. You get three hots, you get three nice meals. You got a roof over your head, and you've been given an opportunity at probably chance number 15. You know what I mean? Because to tell the truth, addiction, I like some people, I hear I'm like, and you're here, why? And then I tell them, obviously, something greater than all of us here wants you here. Right. So, like, I wish those people were listening to this podcast, which they will when I release it. Right. I'm going to make them listen to CJ and his wisdom. Right. Because it's true. If we could just enjoy the moments, like the small things. Right. Because then if we can do that, the big things are going to be even that much better when those events happen in our life. Like I'm telling you, when grandkids come, right? Like I get to be present for that, right? I get to be present here with you today and talk about your book and this amazing young man you are and stuff like that. It makes me sound old when I say that. This amazing man over here, right? Like, but
Not old.
no, not wait. They say the 50s are the new 30s, so I'm good with
That's
that.
right.
Right?
That's right.
But this has been an awesome time, CJ. Like I've loved every moment. Like I'm listening to you and just deeply listening to what you're saying because it's important for me and for you to be here. So thank you so much for being here. But I want to ask you, if my audience wants to get a hold of you and get your book, so how do they get a hold of you if they want your coaching services? They're like, I need CJ to help change my mindset because it's out of whack. I need his help. And how do they get your book, or where can they get your book?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Well, yes, thank you. I really appreciate the kind words. It's been a pleasure connecting with you too. You ask great questions and have great insight to them as well. So, but the best way to find pretty much everything on me is just going to my website, cjledy.com, cjledy.com. And that has links to my book, to how to sign up for coaching, to ways to reach me. But you can also email me at coach@cjledy.com. My book is available on Amazon and Audible. If you just Google my name or the book title, Tune Your Mind, you'll find it there. But yeah, you'll find most things through my website. You can also come visit me out in Utah, where I spend probably about half my year. We just bought an RV park out there. We're doing a health and wellness spin. So we just finished the gym. We've got a sauna, a little cold plunge, and we're going to start hosting events and things too. A place for people to come together, to heal, to set intentions and do more of the type of stuff that we're doing right now, just connecting with people and enjoying. So yeah, there's definitely a handful of ways. And if you want to look me up out there, it's called the Rollin' Home RV Park in Nephi, Utah. It's about an hour south of Salt Lake. So love to have people come swing through. If you're an RVer or not, we've got some rental stuff out there too, if you don't have an RV. So come hang. Probably the next year or so we'll have more specific events. Right now I bought it in August, so I'm starting to revamp things. So by probably this fall or early next spring, we'll actually start hosting events and retreats and stuff there. So
nice to know.
For that.
Lo and behold, my wife we have our little RV. Now we have somewhere
Heck
to go
yeah.
take it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Let me know.
Unfortunately, we haven't taken a trip yet because we helped take care of her mother-in-law and my mother-in-law, and she gets freaked out if we take her on a trip. But it's good to know, right? Like, always, especially what you're talking about. So that's awesome, CJ. And thank God you said your name, because I almost said it wrong, right? Because most people are going to see the one E and want to say it one way, but it's Ledy here.
Yep.
Everybody. So you know how to get a hold of them, everybody. But you're not quite off the hook just yet, right? I'm going to ask you my last and my most favorite question I ask of all my guests, and it goes like this, CJ. It goes, what is the one piece of advice you could give my audience to help them grow as human beings and become better people?
It's a great question. There's one piece of advice to help them grow as human beings, reach potential. I think that it strings through the context of what we're talking about here. I think it's if everybody can sort of slow down a little bit and think of themselves like a coach to themselves. So like we talked about in the beginning, how would you go about coaching somebody who you found in a similar situation to where you are? And following some of the framework of what we talked about, starting with meeting that person where they are, non-judgmentally accepting them for who they are and how they think and where they show up in the world. And, if you can really look at yourself first through that lens, how would I coach somebody like me? How would I care for somebody like me and see them through that non-judgmental lens? And then to go through some of the pieces that we just talked about in my book, the passion. Why are you going after whatever goal you're going after? What is the destination and what are some of the strategic pieces that'll take to get there? How much action and energy do you need to be showing up with on a day-to-day basis? Or how many hours per week do you need to be putting in? And then the sense of ease, what are your limiting beliefs? Lay them out. And what are your empowering beliefs? Make a list of those things. And if your limiting beliefs list is a lot longer than your empowering beliefs list, you got to spend some serious personal time to really think through more empowering pieces and to start crossing out those limiting beliefs. Why are those wrong? Change the scale of those two lists. And finally, the necessity. Why is what you're doing necessary for the world? For you, for the people that you care about? What are the benefits of success and the consequences of you falling short? And really clarify those. You can make two lists of those, the benefits of success and the consequences of falling short. And if you can really clarify those, you will feel that necessity to take action. You will feel the necessity to overcome some of the roadblocks that stand in front of you, some of the temptations that will present themselves to you. You'll remember, this is why it's necessary for me to do that. Right. So that's what I would say. I would say, look at yourself and imagine that you are coaching somebody like you. Show up with grace, show up with, non-judgmental attitude to where that person is and help them kind of lay out the blueprint of the mindset that can help you start to move in the right direction.
I love it. I love the grace part. I'm funny that I posted on social media last night, something about grace, like giving ourselves and others some grace once in a while, because we're living in crazy times, right? Just be nice, be kind. Yeah. Right? To yourself, right? If you can be kind to yourself, it's going to be easier to be kind to everybody else. So I love it, CJ. I love it. This has been an amazing time. We could keep probably going. We could. I have so many questions.
Save it for another one.
That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to have to bring you back and we're going to have to do part 2 and we're just going to have to keep going, right? And
sounds good.
But I appreciate you being here. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to be here and sit with me and my audience today. And we had an amazing time. I bet you everybody out there is shaking their head. Yeah, this was awesome. So you heard him, everybody. If CJ made you think, if he taught you something, if he made you smile, and my famous, if he made you go, I like that. Please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star review so more people can find the podcast. And again, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. Until next time.
Are you tired of being weighed down by life's traumas and struggles? Join the Fearless Happiness lifestyle and let us guide you toward a brighter future. Explore our past podcast episodes and get a copy of the Fearless Happiness book to ignite your inner strength. If you or someone you love is battling addiction or facing challenges related to unresolved trauma, know that we are here for you. Visit maxnijst.org, maxnijst.org, and take the first steps toward finding your fearless happiness. Thank you for listening. This has been a production of Fearless Happiness.